Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, it's less than 2 weeks before the important Pennsylvania primary. 3 of the state's top journalists are here to analyze Pennsylvania government and politics in depth and in detail. And guess what? It all starts right now.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, it's less than 3 weeks. We got in this state one of the most important Senate Democratic primaries in the country. Peter DeCoursey, maybe one of the most important primaries, period, in the country. Yes, no?
Absolutely. When you talk about the Democrats, absolutely want to keep the Specter seat. They want to keep close to that magic number of 60 that allows you to do anything more difficult than cross the street in the U.S. Senate. And they absolutely
don't like each other.
They hate. Well, it's a typical Specter race.
Yeah, right.
By a month out in the Specter race, the two candidates can barely look at each other, and this one is worse than usual. This is worse than, I think, any of the other 5 previous ones.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Now, you see, I got into this. I didn't even introduce these guys. All right, it's Pete DeCoursey with Capitolwire. He has just spoken. Next to him, Scott Detrow with Pennsylvania Public Radio. And on my right now, figuratively speaking, on my right is John Micek with the Allentown Morning Call. Wow. All right, well, we're going to have a good... John.
Yes.
John, okay. This race, they have never played nice. Joe Sestak and Arlen Specter last summer, even before they were on TV, they were going after each other tough. Arlen Specter went negative. I mean, almost the moment that Joe Sestak put a commercial up, Arlen Specter went negative. Was that the right thing to do?
Yeah, it's gotten downright pugilistic. I mean, whether this helps Mr. Specter's electoral chances, I don't really know. I mean, people don't like it when candidates go negative. That's sort of a proven fact in campaign commercials. But, I mean, given sort of what's at stake here, and given the fact that Mr. Specter has to sort of shore up his bona fides among Democratic primary voters, he had very little choice.
Yeah, I think so. Now, the fact of the matter is that, 25–30% of the Democratic primary voters, let's say, as short a period of time ago as 3 weeks, were undecided. They weren't likely to vote for Specter, so if he didn't go negative, were they likely to go to Sestak? He runs that "I'm an Admiral." That's a pretty good commercial.
That's right, yeah. And it seems like the Specter camp was doing everything it could to cut the knees off from Team Sestak so that there's no, presentable alternative. I don't want to vote for Arlen Specter. I don't trust him. This other guy's an Admiral. He looks good to me. He's trying to stop that, right away by saying, yeah, he might be an Admiral, but he was kicked out of the Navy for, being a bad boss, and he misses a lot of votes and a whole bunch of other things, too.
I'll tell you what, hold on,
Arlen went negative too late.
You think too late?
I'm saying too late because right now we're talking about tracking polls, other polls that show there's a 4 to 6 point race where it was a 20-point race a month ago. Arlen Specter had $9 million. He had the money to go on 3 weeks earlier than he did. Sestak did not. He could have made Sestak spend his money early defending himself. Now, the problem is that Arlen Specter is trying to fight a 2-front war. He wants to save himself $4 or $5 million at the end. Oh, yeah.
He's got to live to fight another day, and if he doesn't win the primary, he doesn't have...
As Ed Rendell and other people have shown, you can reload.
Yeah, but now, let's talk about the controversy here. I think of... Now, he's had 3 different sort of negative imprints that he's trying to leave. 1, no-show Joe, missed all these votes. Number 2, he didn't pay his staff, campaign staff, minimum wage. I didn't know that any of them paid a minimum wage, but that's another matter. The third thing is this thing that they have all talked about. How controversial is this? Well, you got defrocked, you got demoted, they kicked you out of the Navy. I mean, and that has the possibility of working against Specter. Yes or no? Start with you.
I'd say yes. I mean, you look at Specter's deep re-elects. There are a lot of people who think he doesn't deserve re-election. So you give him another reason. Maybe he comes across as mean, kind of ornery, picking on Mr. Sestak. Yeah. Maybe that goes to people's biases. On the other hand, he's trying, and as Pete pointed out, he's trying to create this impression that Joe Sestak doesn't have the temperament or the qualifications to be in the United States Senate.
And the 2 ads interlock.
And they do interlock.
Because he created, what the ad says is he created, and what the Admiral said, who was quoted in the Pittsburgh Post, a climate of intimidation and fear, and that he had a poor command climate, and that he doesn't treat his staff like humans. Now, in a Democratic primary where unions play a big part,
Well,
not treating your staff well is
but it's not as Scott. But it's not as
it is frankly hilarious, though, and for a guy who routinely makes Washington lists of the worst bosses in the history of the universe to be pointing out.
I knew this was going to come up.
Hold on, Scott. On some of those lists.
Scott, get in here. You got to get in here. Come on.
I got to be more aggressive here. I think no one is saying that either of these two guys are, boss of the year. They both have reputations as hard drivers, as taskmasters, as guys with short fuses, and they both say we work hard because we want to get accomplishments. Sestak says, I made people work hard in the Navy, but I work just as hard, and it's the same in my district. We're open 7 days a week.
All right, Scott gets the last word. We're going to break. What will happen? What will happen? Less than 2 weeks to go. We'll find out what our experts have to say about what will happen in the Senate race following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by PAConstructionJobs.com. For more information about rewarding careers in the highway construction industry, visit PAConstructionJobs.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, it's our pre-primary, boy, it's hard to say, pre-primary wrap-up on Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Pete DeCoursey, John Micek, Scott Detrow, journalists, all, here we are. Oh, Scott, can it get any uglier than this?
I think so. I think they're going to do their best. I think as of today, I haven't seen the ad yet, but Team Sestak has launched the much-anticipated, at least among us, ad of George W. Bush endorsing Arlen Specter. His quotes about, yeah, I voted for Sarah Palin. They're going to let everybody know, in case they didn't know, that he was a Republican for most of his career, and I'm sure Team Specter will fire back.
Peter, do they have a picture of Arlen Specter, imagine, and Sarah Palin in a Democratic primary? How would that go over?
If they had that picture, frankly, I think the one with Santorum and Bush, where they're all holding arms like they just won the Super Bowl, is probably the picture we're going to see. Yeah. And I think that that's bad enough. I do think that Palin, if they have such a thing, if they had a picture, we'd have seen it by now.
But Arlen I mean, he, not the best Republican organizational guy, you know what I mean? Or maybe
he's always floated out there sort of on his own. I mean, I can't imagine him finding a picture of them arms interlocked with Sarah Palin.
But the quote he has is that it's President Bush saying, Arlen Specter is a man I can trust on, I rely on him. That was a quote from 2004, and I think the Sestak campaign is ready to throw that back in his face.
All right, so look, the conventional wisdom is Arlen should win. Guess what always follows that? Comma, but. You know what I mean, Peter? But. Just a little nagging, no, yes, no.
Yeah, well, again, you've got an 80-year-old guy working 18-hour days. I mean, let's face it.
But he's more robust than
anybody.
More energy than any 80-year-old I know.
He plays more squash.
He plays more squash than Scott Detrow.
You look at all the 80-year-olds you know and ask yourself how many of them could do that. That's, I think, the biggest but. But, I mean, the other thing is, keep in mind that Arlen has been doing this. He's been walking the same tightrope for 30 years, with the exception of the 1 year, 1998, where he had poor Bill Lloyd, that's a Democrat, and Joe Watkins, a former state rep. Who's he is your point. Yeah.
All right, well, look, we're going to end this. We're going to go to the Democratic primary for governor. It seems like the Democrats have the big races. John Micek, we've got two guys from the Southwest. We've got Dan Honorado, the county executive from Allegheny County. We've got Jack Wagner, the Auditor General, though perhaps more a state figure than a regional figure. From the eastern part of the state, we have Joe Huffle, a Montgomery County Commissioner, who's run for more offices than anybody in the history of the state. And then we have Tony Williams, the state senator from Philadelphia. For months, nothing. And then the magic of what?
Yeah, the campfire sing-along is finally over. After weeks and weeks of these painfully genial appearances at public forums, the attack ads are out there. Tony Williams drew first blood,
Yep.
whacking Honorado for his record on economic development in Allegheny County and for the infamous poured drinks tax out there. Joe Huffle, attempting to maximize his dollars, went for a twofer in a spot that began airing on Wednesday, hitting Honorado and Williams, respectively, on abortion and public education. And then Honorado, in a spot that not a lot of us have seen yet, apparently came out on Tuesday night, hitting Tony Williams for votes on the pension and the pay raise.
Pay raise, yeah.
So after weeks and weeks, it's finally gotten ugly.
Scott, you went to a lot of these forums. Well, all of you did. You covered these forums. I mean, an endless array of forums, perhaps more than any other primary race. Pete, I don't know any governor's race that had this many forums.
There have been 900.
For 900. For months. I mean, except that everyone's trying to carve out a niche in the political marketplace. But for most voters, could they tell the difference? They all sounded the same.
Right. And when you hear them talk about how they're going to overhaul the economy, stuff like that, it's nearly identical. I think each has their own little niche at this point. Honorado, I'm the guy who turned around Allegheny County. Jack Wagner, I'm a fiscal watchdog. Joe Huffle, I'm liberal. Tony Williams, I'm thinking
he's progressive. They never use the word liberal. Go ahead, fit it.
And Tony Williams has been getting a lot of attention talking about his unorthodox democratic views on education.
Yep. Peter, the power, you've written about this in Capitolwire.com. TV, the awesome power of television.
With the
exception
of Tony Williams, if you flipped the money from Honorado to any other candidate, you would flip the result. Now, this is not to say Dan Honorado has not had a good record, has not worked hard, has not hired good staff. But the fact is that if Jack Wagner had the $6 million and Dan Honorado had the $1 million, you'd flip the result. If Joe Huffle had the $6 million. Now, the one negative case is we've seen right now Tony Williams has spent $3 million on TV and moved himself from about 5 points in the polls to about 9. It is the smallest movement per $1 million in the history of Pennsylvania.
Hold on a minute. Well, that's true. But you got to confess, it's almost like in these big races, if you're not on TV, it didn't happen. Now, I know you're a newspaper guy and write great stuff. I'm not, but it's like TV. Is that really going to deliver it for Honorado? Do you think that's the final?
I think the problem for Williams, at least, is that he went from, absolute zero to where he is now. Honorado, at least, he's popular in his district in Philadelphia and Delaware County there and its environs. Honorado came at least into this primary as more sort of a statewide figure among Democrats than Senator Williams did.
We got to go to break. We got to go to break.
Tony went from 5 to 8 with $3 million bucks.
But the thing is, I think it's the difference in message. It's Honorado's out there talking jobs and the economy and all this pocketbook stuff, and Tony Williams is talking school choice, which makes most Democrats bang their heads against the table.
We're going to break. I will say this as we go to break. No one spent more time working on sort of the Democratic infrastructure, the party people, friends around Rendell, than Honorado for several years. Planning this a lot sooner, with a lot more comprehensive.
Jack Wagner spent as much time planning, but with no results.
No results. All right, we'll be back. Democratic governor's primary. Again, more on that following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to, I can't call it Journalist Roundtable because I think somebody else does that. How about three of the leading reporters here to talk about the primary, the upcoming primary on May 18. We're talking about the Pennsylvania Democratic primary. All right, we've got, less than 2 weeks to go. Honorado, is Scott Detrow sort of burst out of the pack, if that's proper English. What can any of these other candidates do? We got all sorts of things going on. We got regionalism, we got lay out a scenario for somebody to catch them.
We lost jobs in Allegheny County, a lot of taxes. Drink tax, drink tax, drink tax, drink tax. I mean, I think that's their best bet to bring him back into the pack. That's what you're starting to see with the Williams commercial. Joe Huffle, you know, we mentioned, launched a negative ad as well. And Jack Wagner was here in Harrisburg, and that's something that he was talking about, the unemployment numbers. So we'll see where that goes. We'll see if there's enough time.
All right, now listen, you've written about regionalism over the years. How does that play out? You got 2 candidates Southeast, 2 candidates Southwest. Take it.
Yeah, 40% of the vote out in the Southeast is going to be divided by Williams, Huffle, and Honorado, with Williams and Huffle a little bit ahead, but Honorado there. Wagner's at nothing. So the question is, the rest of the state, can Wagner catch up enough, because only Wagner has a chance to catch up, to Honorado to make it a competitive race? So you have this odd strategy where Huffle to a lesser extent and Williams to an incredible extent are attacking Honorado to benefit Wagner in the hope that if you drag Honorado enough down and push Wagner enough up, then one of those two will also ride up by getting the East and win. That is their strategy. So you have this everybody hit the guy with the ball thing going on.
Sort of pull the leader back into the pack. I mean, that's
But the point is that at 8 and 9, it's hard to see how Senator Anthony Williams, despite dumping what looks like $1 million on TV in the West to try to criticize Mr. Honorado, it's hard to see how it benefits him. It is conceivable to see how it benefits Huffle, but the most likely scenario is that it helps Jack Wagner.
What's weird that we've been seeing, the Morning Call has been doing this daily tracking poll from Muhlenberg College. We've got Honorado, who's just run away with like a 16-point shift between April and May, you know, from 20 to 36. It was 34% this morning, Thursday. You've got Huffle at 12. This weird surge from Huffle.
Is that the liberal base?
I think it's the southeastern base coming out, and then Wagner and Williams fading. So even if Williams and Huffle come hard at Honorado, it seems like it's still only 1 or 2 points. I'm not sure how that elevates Wagner, who has not really
Scott and Peter.
If Wagner's the guy who we're saying is poised to hop forward, the financial issue is tough because the limited ads he's running kind of have a cheap production value. It's like Jack Wagner standing in front of a green screen just kind of talking about his issues. It's not on the level of the other ads we're seeing.
Is he the big surprise, Peter, that Wagner...
Absolutely. I mean, if you'd have told me, when I looked at the polling results for Allegheny in the West, and they were 50, 28, 11, I thought to myself, oh, 50 is Honorado because all the ads. 28 is Jack because he's worked so hard, he's from there, he's a native. 11 is undecided. No, 11 was Jack and 28 was undecided. How in the world, if you're Jack Wagner and you have no money, are you going to get... If there's 28% undecided, you got to assume most of that goes to Wagner or Honorado because it's not going to go to Huffle or Williams. But right now, to go to Scott's point, the advantage Wagner has that nobody else has is that other guys are doing his dirty work for him. Huffle and Williams are attacking Honorado.
Is it enough? I mean,
probably not. But the question is there a scenario where somebody takes over and with 1/3 undecided left?
Okay, look, we're not going to end the election. That's not what we do here. But let's just sort of look at it this way. Honorado clearly is the favorite now, and it is an uphill fight for these other 3 guys, even despite the regionalism. It's not unimportant.
A huge slog. The bottom 3 guys have to hope for low turnout on primary day, which they hope will elevate each of them.
And something to happen to buoy one of them up. One of them needs to find
big stories. All right, we're getting out of here. We're going to ask them the big stories coming up less than 2 weeks before the May 18th primary. Back after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Welcome back to our journalists. I can't say it. Welcome back to our analyst roundtable with 3 of the state's leading journalists. All right, John Micek. I could say, I did say reporters. I did. Okay, go ahead. Big stories. What What are you working on?
Here's something that may or may not be predictive of what we're in for. Everyone is saying this cycle that Democrats are going to take a beating in the midterms. It's acknowledged that it's going to be a tough year for Democrats, but there was an interesting congressional race in Florida with a Pennsylvania tie, a guy named Ted Deutsch, a state senator from Florida, born and raised in Bethlehem, a graduate of Liberty High School.
You're sneaking that in.
Yeah, I have to. He won a special election for a seat down there.
It's an overwhelmingly Democratic
district. But the point of it is Republicans are going around this year saying no seat is safe, which is patent.
Yeah, but we got one election coming up here.
Which is patently untrue. I'm just saying that as confident as Republicans are, that they can't take every race for granted.
Well,
so that may or may not be predictive.
That's true. They're not going to pick up every seat, to be sure, but the key seat in an overwhelmingly Democratic you know where I'm heading. Go ahead.
Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Go ahead. Talk about it.
Former Rep. Jack Murtha died earlier this year. There is a very, very interesting race, both primaries and a special election to fill his seat.
Yep.
Republicans are throwing everything but the kitchen sink in there. Democrats are responding. It is going to be in a seat where Jack Murtha used to spend $2 or $3 million.
Mark Kritz, who was the staff guy, the district office guy, running as a legacy candidate, but yet separating himself on energy and health care, right?
Right, and Tim Burns a conservative entrepreneur, a conservative businessman who was all in to fight Murtha, and now finds himself not fighting Murtha, the institution in Johnstown,
although
instead a guy who isn't as well known and can be. What they're trying to do is tag him with all of Murtha's baggage without giving him credit for Murtha's accomplishments.
All right, so that's the 12th CD on
and that
May
will be
18th.
nationally watched. That's a Scott Brown type election. That's
special election, big deal. Oh, Bill DeWeese, what were you doing out in Greene County? Come on, tell me, Scott.
Kind of driving around in Bill DeWeese's truck. I spent a couple days in the district there. Very interesting.
Is more deer than people.
It's right on the West Virginia border. I saw a ton of Kritz and Burns signs pretty much everywhere I went. It's an interesting race. He's got a real tough challenge. Pam Snyder, one of the commissioners in Greene County, giving him a hard fight. Tons of Snyder signs everywhere you go. DeWeese does not have that much money, and it's an uphill battle. As he says, hard to run for re-election when you have 6 counts against you. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, he also, hold on a minute, he also just narrowly won 2 years ago. You guys all know this, and he won by not with the votes from Greene County, but with the votes from neighboring Washington County, right? Go ahead.
He's got this lady who is a Greene County political powerhouse running against him, and he won, as you say, with Fayette and Washington County votes. So
Bill DeWeese, former Speaker of the House, by the way, now majority whip. Do I got that right, guys?
No longer.
No longer, but he was once charged. He had to give up.
But if he wins, he's counting on a lot of people, and I talked to a lot of voters who feel this way. They say, Bill's been our guy for a long time. He's brought back millions of dollars. He knows how to pull the strings. And I asked one lady, don't you care about the fact he got charged? She said, he's not the first, won't be the last.
Snyder actually got off, I think, the line of the campaign, though, where DeWeese was at this debate down there and said he wanted to keep the Green team together. And Snyder said, well, that's really nice, but I'd like Bill to go off and enjoy that pension increase that he voted for. So it was actually like the line of the campaign, I thought.
But we got 30 seconds, Peter. It's the old deal again. It's how much have you delivered, what have you done for me lately in the district versus whether
But keep in mind, voting for pay raises and pension increases almost doomed this guy. Now you've got the pay raise, the pension increase.
All right, Peter gets
criminal counts.
Peter gets the last word. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.